The Centretown Citizens Community Association represents the most central neighborhood in Canada's capital, bounded by the Ottawa River in the north, the Rideau Canal in the east, Highway 417 in the south, and Bronson Avenue in the west. Established in the late 1960s as the Centretown Community Association, the group is still going strong, and the people who started it all are still with us to share the story of how it all began. This video is a compilation of audio clips from interviews with these four founding couples: Mike and Maureen Cassidy, Tony and Nan Griffiths, June and Joe Cassie, and Jim and Elspeth Menendez. 40 years later, the story of the CCCA's earliest days is told in their own words. All four couples moved into Centretown during the 1960s. When Mike and Maureen Cassidy came to Ottawa, Mike was a journalist in the Ottawa bureau of the Montreal-based newspaper The Financial Times.
And then a friend said, well, you know, if you're going to live in Ottawa, well, you should live here. And drew a little map to show me Elgin Street and the canal.
While real estate agents would later nickname it the Golden Triangle, this part of Centretown was not always the jewel it is known as today.
What we learned was that at that time was that the city, the impression at City Hall was still that the area east of Elgin, we used to call it the Hole. And when we bought here, the estate agent we bought, I said, oh, you don't find there. You know, it's full of ruined houses and drugs and needles and things like that. So, that's where we want to be. And then things got better and you moved in. Centretown as a whole was experiencing the march of the giants in terms of high-rise apartments and other structures who were moving up from the downtown core, so north of Gloucester, into the residential parts of Centretown. And you could just see it happening, and it was going on and on and on and on. And in the end, the Centretown plan is what kind of put some shape to that. But there was also at that period a lot of blockbusting going on. The developers were buying big houses on the north end of Cartier and letting them run down or knocking them down and making parking lots, and the whole thing's marching down. This was all considered to be a soft area.
Well, it started when the Griffiths and the Menendezes found out about the Victoria Bridge, and we just bought that house. We bought this house in '68, right. And they came to the door and said, "Do you know your house may be torn down?"
I was down here watching TV one night, and I saw something about the replacement of the Victoria Bridge, and one of the off-ramps was to come, or the on-ramps, I'm not quite sure which, was to come through Delaware about two houses away from here and would just destroy the whole area. So I called Nan and have a look at this and said, my God, we're going to do something about this. And so we went up and down the street and formed what was then called the Delaware Avenue Property Owners Association. And that evolved into, is that what we call them? I think so. That's my memory anyway. Some damn name like that. And then it evolved into the Centretown Citizens and so on and so on and so on. It was even better because it was they had three routes. This was about the size, but they had three routes, and which effectively meant that everybody from Argyle down to Frank Street could see that the proposed new bridge might go into their area. So the whole, it was a wonderful organizing tool.
Anyway, they just got more and more people involved, and then they decided that the thing to do was to write the brief. And as you know, Michael Cassidy was very much involved in that. So he took things away and started to write the brief. It was so well thought out, well documented, and designed. And I think that Nan Griffiths deserves that, as well as Michael Cassidy. But you know, one of the funniest things was the meeting to which Michael Cassidy, of course, everybody talked about what they wanted in this brief, and Michael Cassidy had done it. And of course, he was lecturing in journalism, I think, at Carleton University at that time, and he brought it to a meeting and presented it to everybody, and everybody picked on it and tore it to shreds, which was really quite funny, because he thought, he was the professional. And so this is what community organizations really do. It was a brief that was made by, like a camel, little bits and things all put together. So, but Nan did a lot of the drawings and the interpretations of, which I thought were really good, of what the impact of the proposed bridge would do. Because we had the common cause of the Pretoria Bridge, it had to be fought with Sandy Hill, Glebe, Ottawa East, Centretown, and we also got Dalhousie involved because the roads would have brought traffic all the way from Alta Vista right down into the Dalhousie area.
There was a presentation by the engineers, traffic engineers at City Hall, and I can remember going to it and seeing the lawyers, Paul Holloway, driving up, and developers driving up in their fantastic cars, and then the engineers presenting the plan in a very proud way, and then being very shocked at the mass of protest that came from all the people who come to the meeting. And that, I think, was a thing that sort of changed it all and woke up the city.
At the time, this really was a landmark event. We organized, and there was no public consultation where people could speak to council on it. But we packed the galleries, and the people, they had to bring in authentic chairs so that to accommodate the crowd, so that the council chamber in the old city hall was jammed, and so nobody spoke, but they emoted, and they made their feelings very clear, and it wasn't quite hissing and booing at the appropriate times that they were doing those kinds of things, and that was the dramatic, if you will, end. And council eventually recognized, and the plan got changed for the reconstruction of the Pretoria Bridge rather than demolition and disappearance. When the bridge had been rebuilt, this was after the successful fight to stop the flyover that was when the bridge was rebuilt, a bunch of us went to the official opening. And a plaque was unveiled. And here was a plaque which named, as was often the custom, the members of council at the time that the reconstruction occurred. Right. So Claude Bennett, a number of other people. Well, and a bunch of us took a look at this and said, this is outrageous. These are the people who we had to fight tooth and nail in order to stop.
So I went to Hayden, I said, Hayden, this is ridiculous. You can't have your sign up there saying that these guys hit the bridge when it was the associations. I want a sign on that bridge. I want all of the associations that were involved at that time put on it. He said, well, your name can go on it. I said, forget my name. Put the association. I said, you've got to have recognition of the real people that stopped that bridge. And he agreed. He said, you're right, Joe.
The speed with which the Federation of Community Associations was formed from between 68 and 71 is an indication of this ferment was there, and it was there in other cities as well.
No, I mean at council when it was approved. Do you remember the council meeting where it was approved? Mm-hmm. But I remember taking my knitting, and I knit the the whole back of a sweater, but because it was so tense. But I remember it went on until almost 3 o'clock in the morning.
2:30.
And I can remember Alderman Robert. Do you remember him?
Yeah, Rael there.
Rael Robert. And he kept wanting to go home. And the Centretown community had rallied all the organizations, the community associations, to be there to support the plan. And every time Robert went out the door, his community association would say, "Get back there and vote." and he did. He had the ticket.
And one of the things that a bunch of us said was, look, we've got to, if this place is a sense of identity, this is Centretown. And that's what it's been historically, and that's, hence the Centretown News. We initially got money from a group called the Workers' Educational Association. And this was a Canadian offshoot of a British organization which had sponsored adult education and labour organization for many, many years in the UK. And came across here and was emulated here.
And Reg Sylvester, Jim and I were talking about this, Reg Sylvester was the original editor. And I think that did an awful lot for to get the local people to understand about the community association, but about their own community.
And then not long after, as this was running out of money, the local initiatives program. And I don't know if you are aware of that, but that was a program which was designed to create employment, particularly for young people, and also do community organization. And that money eventually ran out, but this was sometime later. And eventually, after 2 or 3 approaches, then Carlton J School agreed to take on the Centretown News. And the reason it survives to this day is because it's a vehicle for the journalism school.
In the mid-1990s, with the Centretown News still being produced by the journalism school at Carleton University, the community once again wanted its own voice. Thus, in October 1995, Centretown residents established the Centretown Buzz, which today is produced by a partnership of the Centretown Citizens Community Association and the Dalhousie Community Association.
I think the biggest accomplishment in my view is that we were able to stop high-rising going along the canal.
Yeah.
Because in those days, everybody that was at City Hall wanted to put up these tall buildings because they figured they were getting more money, from taxes.
I've never liked the term property owners, and I think that that's one of the things that really the Centretown Community Association was wonderful about, was that very early on they decided that there was no way they could identify themselves as property owners versus tenants.
Right.
And I think that was really wonderful.
When Martin and I bought our place on Waverly Street, it was because we strongly wanted to be there. And lots of people, not just the owners, but also the tenants, were in Centretown, not because they had to, but because they wanted to.